Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, across this beautiful blue-green globe of ours, wherever you may be. This is Real News Live. I'm your host, Mike Barra, near Seattle, Washington. All right, guys, it is a Deep Thought Thursday, a ugly Christmas sweater Thursday. This is my last chance to wear an ugly Christmas sweater before Christmas, so here I am wearing my official ugly Seahawks Christmas sweater for this year. You know, I don't get very many chances to wear my ugly Christmas sweater, so I have to do it on the show. Yeah. Merry Christmas to everybody out there as well. Guys, got to be honest, there's not a lot of news today. Nothing really happening. My sources on the Nasara global currency thing are basically saying they're all going home. There are people gathered in Reno and Miami, Zurich, to prepare to exchange bonds and funds and get cashed out. Everybody's been told it's imminent, and it just keeps not happening. A lot of them are going home for Christmas. They'll come back sometime like on the 27th after Christmas to see if anything might happen, if they're, of course, told that they should be there. But what seems to be happening is absolutely nothing. It is more than a big nothing burger. It is pretty much not a thing at all. So, you know, Jen keeps telling us that, or has told us that January 2nd or 3rd is going to be the announcement. It slid back then. I don't hear, you know, I don't know. At this point, not a lot to say. Not a lot to say. There's just really not much of anything happening. Also great to see yesterday. Remember, yesterday was when Mr. Poole, who's on Telegram, and nobody really knows who Mr. Poole is, might be Phil, might be Ezra Cohen-Watnick, might be somebody else, pointed to yesterday, 12/22/2021, as a date when something might happen with the military. And everybody got real excited yesterday when Dan Scavino, who of course is really, really close to the president, tweeted out a bunch of pictures of Trump greeting what appeared to be military guys. Oh, maybe these are special ops guys coming back from operations, but you can see how fat they all are, how sloppy. They're actually Orlando police from the public event that Trump did with Bill O'Reilly a few days ago, and he was shaking hands with those people. So it's really not much of anything, and that turned out to also be nothing. And absolutely nothing happened that I'm aware of yesterday that could be interpreted as having anything to do with military action, anything taking place. You know, basically, guys, let's be honest, we're grasping at straws here. We really don't have much information to go on. Nothing appears to be happening. It's, you know, I don't want Jen to get mad at me, but it's not going to be a Merry Christmas like we were promised by a lot of different people. It's going to be a miserable Christmas with our country still in the depths of despair with this demented, perverted old man pretending to be the president, and the real president and the people behind him apparently not having the guts to do anything about this ridiculous situation. That's really all I can say. That's my deep thought for the day. Not a lot to go on. Sorry I can't be more encouraging, but basically I'm going to spend the next few days drinking beer and making Christmas cookies and eating them. So that's kind of where I'm planning on going until we see something out in the clear, in the public, in the news. We got nothing. We got nothing to go on. Tiffany Hayes, looking for some good news today. It's my birthday, so good news would be great. Sorry, Tiff, I don't have any for you. I don't have any news. There's just absolutely nothing happening. Other than, of course, the president calling for sickness and death for people who aren't vaccinated, haven't taken the poison vaccines. So I understand Candace Owens kind of went after Trump on the vaccines a little bit yesterday. Interesting, potentially, but nothing really going on there. So I don't have a lot for you guys today. Other than that, I did spend, you know, I was after Phil did a live last week. And yes, happy birthday, Tiffany. You're one of the best. After Phil did his live last week, and he talked about the JFK assassination, and he talked about how JFK did not die in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. And he lived to be 103 years old. Yeah, whatever Wanosabin said, I don't think you can really count on much. He's clearly not on the inside anymore. So if he ever was, I think he was, but he's not on the inside anymore. Um, on all this stuff about John F. Kennedy still being alive, not Junior, but John F. Kennedy himself was still alive and passed away at 103 and a bunch of stuff. And I said, look, basically everything Phil said on his live tonight about the Kennedy assassination is wrong. I know that from what I know about the Kennedy assassination. And Phil actually came in and directly challenged me to watch his JFK video series, which is on his Rumble channel. So I did. There's a part 1, a part 2, and a part 3, and they're 3 or 4 pages deep in his lists. And I encourage anybody that wants to go and be interested, go ahead and watch the videos. But I got to be honest. I would say 80% of what he talked about is either factually incorrect, a misinterpretation, or just plain wrong. And I don't know where he got his information from. I suspect a lot of his information came from probably some YouTube videos, things like that. I have posted a few things on MikeBear.blogspot.com, one video of a Dr. Crenshaw who was covered on 2020 back in the 1990s. And I don't think Phil is insincere. I don't think he's trying to put one over on anybody. I just don't think he knows jack shit about the Kennedy assassination. I mean, he literally, there's some bad books out there. Jim Marr's book, Jim Garrison's book, they're not very good. They have a lot of errors and mistakes in them and things that are just not correct, and they're very derivative. And then you have the JFK film and the whole Oliver Stone crowd who are just idiots. And as a for instance, remember JFK? Remember the film JFK, Donald Sutherland? Why could nobody get a call through to Washington, D.C. after the assassination? Because back in the day, they had physical phone lines that connected every phone in Washington, D.C. And every person who knew anybody in D.C. was calling on the phone, trying to find out if they knew anything about the president being shot. That's why. I mean, again, common sense. So I don't want to rip on Phil too much, but I am going to go over some of this stuff bit by bit in the hopes that I can correct some of the things that are just misstated about it. I'm not going to give you my whole theory. It's pretty straightforward, but let's just take a look at the Kennedy assassination here. This is a shot, and it's gruesome. I don't want to linger on it too much because it's kind of gruesome. But this is frame 312 of the Zapruder film. President Kennedy has been shot already through the back, and it came out his throat and passed through into Governor Connolly. And then another frame later, she's shot in the head. It's gruesome. I don't want to linger on it, but pretty clearly he's shot from the front. Now the story is, of course, that Lee Harvey Oswald shot him with this rifle, a Mannlicher Carcano 22 caliber rifle, an Italian rifle, the rifle that the Italians said never killed anybody on purpose. And Oswald had a lot of odd associations, including with Ted Cruz's dad and people like Jack Ruby, and the whole thing took place in Dealey Plaza. Now, according to Phil, I don't know if you can see my cursor here. I think you can. There were gunmen on the roof of this building, and a guy over here, and a guy here, and two guys, one guy over here on the 6th floor school book depository. And as the car came down, President Kennedy was shot in the head from this area right here, which is a storm drain. Somebody shot up on the car, and the car was kind of in the middle of the road, and shot the president in the head. Now, all of that is wrong. There's simply no evidence for anything more than two gunmen. The two gunmen were Lee Harvey Oswald in the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository, and Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit on the grassy knoll, who fired the fatal headshot. Tippit was witnessed by a man named Gordon Arnold. And again, you can go look at my presentations. I'll probably try it on the blog spot. I'll try to put up one of my Ancient Aliens and JFK presentations. A man named Gordon Arnold was standing on the grassy knoll next to the picket fence and just in front of the picket fence, taking film of the president with his mom's 8mm movie camera when a shot rang past his ear. He was just out of basic training and he knew that. Lee Harvey Oswald was spotted by this man, a black man, who saw him in the 6th floor window, a man matching Oswald's description, wearing a white t-shirt with a rifle with a scope on it, firing 3 shots at the president. 1, 2, 3. And then he disappeared from the window. Nobody other than some odd guy that Phil pulled up saw anybody in the opposite window. And there were multiple witnesses, to that. The first shot, according to Phil, the first shot missed. The second shot, according to Phil, was the magic bullet that had to magically change directions and hit Governor Connolly in 3 or 4 different places. Actually, it tore through his rib, his wrist, and lodged in his leg, where it was evidently later found on a stretcher at Parkland Memorial Hospital. That story's in dispute. But Phil claims that the president was shot from the front, in the throat, and Connolly was shot 3 or 4 times by other gunmen, one of whom was Woody Harrelson's dad. In reality, Oswald fired 3 shots. He missed the first one. The second shot was Oswald fired. Well, he fired at least 2 shots, probably 3. First one missed, deflected off of a light stanchion and ended up going somewhere else. The second shot passed through the president, in his back, out his throat, through Governor Connolly as it began to tumble sideways. It tore through Governor Connolly's ribs, went through his wrist, and into his leg, where it was apparently found on the stretcher later. Now, this doesn't require any magical trajectory. The bullet came right through the president and into Governor Connolly. It tumbled sideways after it exited the president's body and ended up in Governor Connolly. And as you can see, it matches up completely. It's a straight shot right through to the presidential limo. So this is the bullet, the so-called magic bullet, the one that everybody rips on and says, oh, there's no, look at it, it's perfect, it's pristine, it couldn't have possibly done all that damage and hit bone and all that. But the sideways view of it, the rear view of it, you can see it's flattened on one side because it tumbled and tore through the governor's body. There's a lot of evidence of this gunman on the grassy knoll. The Mary Mormon photograph shows a man. This is an enhancement done not with computers, but with good old-fashioned analog enlargements and brightening of a man with a policeman's uniform and no hat on the grassy knoll. This guy is Dallas Police Officer J.D. Tippit. As you can see, the ears match, okay, exactly. The thick, bushy eyebrows match, and the very odd, very unique wedge pattern, male pattern baldness matches perfectly. Now, Phil talked about other things, like, for instance, if you watch the Orville Nix video, by the way, this is Abraham Zapruder. That's where he was filming the fatal headshot from the president. It just happened. If you watch this, he accuses the driver of the limo of stopping the limousine so the president could be shot. That's not what happened. What happened was when the shots rang out, everybody turned around and looked behind them, including the driver. He obviously just lifted his foot off the gas slightly. The limousine slowed. The motorcycles caught up a little bit, and then they stopped because, as you can see, all of them, 1, 2, 3, and there were 4, are all looking up onto the grassy knoll into this area, right? Because that's where the fatal headshot came from. Here's a guy even pointing. You can see that's his arm there, that's his sleeve, pointing up towards the grassy knoll area. This is the Mary Mormon photograph taken a split second before the president was killed. This right here is the muzzle flash from the gunman on the grassy knoll. And this is a shot from the Marie Muchmore film, where you can see a reddish spray and the front of the president's head being brushed up. That's from the bullet hitting him in the head. This is an enhancement I've done. I colored in the reddish area there, and his hair is pushed up because the bullet has just struck him in the head and has not exited out the back of his head yet. So again, there's all kinds of other evidence. There's smoke. Again, this is the president just before he was hit. And this is the trajectory of the bullet, which shows that it clearly came from up above in the grass. This is a colorized version of the Mary Mormon photograph showing three men. This is Gordon Arnold, who was wearing his summer camouflage uniform. He'd just gotten out of basic. He's holding his mother's 8mm camera in front of his face. He's leaning because the shot has just rang past his ear. This is the picket fence. And this is another man behind the gunman, the so-called badge man, who you can see is wearing a Dallas policeman's uniform. Now, before this enhancement work was ever done, Gordon Arnold testified on camera for a show called The Men Who Killed Kennedy. It's episode 2. That he saw a man with no hat, and this guy's not wearing a hat, in a Dallas policeman's uniform with a rifle, came around and confronted him and demanded his film. So, again, all this stuff correlates. This is the man, J.D. Tippit, clearly identified. I'm going to go through some of this other stuff here. By the way, this is not George Herbert Walker Bush in Dealey Plaza. That is Dallas Police Detective Ira Trantham. So, there's all this stuff about E. Howard Hunt being arrested and the badge man. There's the famous Wink photograph. He talked about that, where Congressman Albert Thomas, the congressman from NASA, winks at him. But here's the key thing that I think is really the most important. In the new Kennedy documents that were released by President Trump in 2017, there was a memo from an informant about Lee Harvey Oswald. And in it, it says the informant indicated that the president was actually assassinated by Dallas police officer Tippit. That's J.D. Tippit. Also, that 1 week before the assassination, Patrolman Tippit, the head of the John Birch Society in Dallas, and an unnamed third party suggested by these FPC individuals as possibly being Oswald, were together in Jack Ruby's nightclub. Now, if you don't know who Jack Ruby is the guy who shot Lee Harvey Oswald dead the next day after the assassination, or the Sunday after the assassination. So that pretty clearly is my theory. It's supported by documentation. It's supported by films. It's supported by photographs. And Phil's theory is a little bit crazier than that. It basically says that John F. Kennedy was shot in the head, but he didn't die. And again, I'm going to refer you to this. The doctors, Dr. Crenshaw and the other doctors that treated the president in the emergency room, said when they went to look at the head wound, there was a flap of skin that was still holding the skull there. They pulled it back, and about half of the president's brains fell out. Okay, he was fucking dead. So Phil claims that J.D. Tippit's body was swapped for John F. Kennedy's body, and they did a fake autopsy, and he showed some autopsy videos. I'm going to go away from that. They showed some autopsy photographs that one of them showed a tiny little exit wound or entrance wound in the throat. And he claimed it's not a real photograph. It's a Photoshop photograph. Now, did Phil know it was Photoshopped? I don't believe so. But the Dr. Crenshaw, says the photos of the autopsy do not match the body that he put into a coffin. He says, I put his body into a coffin. So there's all this stuff about that. It appears that somebody did futz with the body in the autopsy, or at least with the photographs. Back in those days, they would have had to airbrush them. There was no Photoshop. Because a couple of the other doctors agreed with Dr. Crenshaw that they couldn't tell. First of all, Dr. Crenshaw never saw the entrance wound in the back, so he didn't know anything about that. He thought that the front wound in the throat was an entrance wound. He was adamant that the headshot came from the front. He was correct in that. It came from the grassy knoll from Officer J.D. Tippit. So others later found the wound on the back during the autopsy, which basically the doctor said, I saw both wounds. I couldn't tell the difference, which one was the entrance and which one was the exit. So what happened is the bullet passed through the president, probably from probably from the back, exited the front, began to tumble, tore through John Connolly's ribs, through his wrist, and then into his thigh. That apparently is what happened. It's not very complicated. It does not defy the laws of physics. Also, in this photograph, this is the president has been hit already. That's Lyndon Baines Johnson's limo. You can see people are turning around to listen to the shots coming from the 6th floor window of the school book depository. And Johnson is already ducking. He's not visible in there. So Phil then goes on at the end to post this photograph. Why does it look like that? That is too weird. What the fuck is that? Oh, design ideas. No, how about if we just forget about design ideas? And says that this man is John F. Kennedy, that he survived the head wound, lived to be 103 years old, led the Q movement, and apparently met President Trump during a ceremony, World War II veteran ceremony. Now, I will grant you, this man does bear a resemblance to John F. Kennedy. He could very well be somehow related to him. And there is enough of a resemblance between the ages of 43 and the ages of 103 that you could say might be him. The eyebrows are a little thicker on the older man than they were on President Kennedy. The ears and the nose are not quite a perfect match, but your ears and your nose continue to grow throughout your life. However, this does not appear to be a man who had the right side of his head repaired. And I will again emphasize to you that the president's brains were blown out of his head. So let's pretend, and let's assume just for a second, that this man is in fact John F. Kennedy. What's the possible explanation? Well, Phil's explanation is that he survived. He did not survive. Clearly, unless everybody is lying, and I don't believe the doctors are lying, he was shot in the head. It was a clearly fatal wound, and he was killed. However, what we don't know is we don't know about cloning technology. We know that they told us the first clones were made of a sheep in the 1970s, but it's possible that the secret government has had cloning technologies a lot longer than that. So it's entirely possible. And remember, it's theoretically possible. And we've discussed the fact that Vincent Fusca is not John F. Kennedy Jr., but that he is some sort of duplicate or clone of John F. Kennedy Jr. So hang on, got to tell my cleaning lady she can come over right now. I think it's far more likely if this man is John Kennedy, and again, yeah, here we are, Phil. With the eyebrows, I'm a little bothered by that. It's, to me, entirely possible that this man is some sort of clone of the president. And, you know, we don't know. We don't know how consciousness works. We don't know what kind of consciousness technologies might exist in the world. It might be that the president's consciousness could have been transferred to a new body at some point, or that this clone, once he was grown, and remember the thing about Dolly the sheep, when they cloned her, is, and this has been with all the clones, when you are cloned at the same age as you were, as the source DNA. So he would have been cloned at the age of 43 and maybe lived to be 103. I don't know. Could be him. I think the resemblance is close enough that it's worth thinking about. But, you know, he has all kinds of other stuff involved there. He has all sorts of other nonsense about mafiosos and all these people involved. And it just doesn't add up at all. It just doesn't add up. And again, I could go through it point by point. The J.D. Tippett thing, him being shot. He says he was shot by G. Gordon Liddy, radio talk show host. He neglects to point out G. Gordon Liddy, of course, was a Nixon aide. In reality, he was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. So Oswald and Tippett meet in Jack Ruby's nightclub to plot the assassination. They carry out the assassination. Oswald fires 1, 2, 3 shots, misses 2 of them, hits 1 of them. The fatal headshot is fired probably simultaneously with Oswald's third shot, strikes the president in the head, and kills him. So that, I believe, is what happened, very clearly. And, you know, this idea that somebody could be shot from the storm drain, it's like that would be the most ridiculous angle. You'd have a split second to make the shot, if you could even get an angle, because the president was far enough inboard on the car that you might not even get an angle. The much easier shot is from the grassy knoll. And how do I know that? Because I've stood there. I've stood in 2019 in exactly the place where the badge man figure is, firing his weapon. And given how slow the car was moving, 5 to 10 miles an hour, slowed down even more after the president reacted to the first shot and the driver's turning around. I know a good marksman could have easily made that shot. I, myself, might have been able to pull that shot off from the grassy knoll. And I'm a terrible marksman. So, you know. Also, there's other nonsense. William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse, wrote this ridiculous book. Oh, it was the driver. He turned around and shot the president with a gun, which, first of all, somebody else in the car would have noticed if the driver had shot the president in the head. Secondly, when he turns, it's just all based on really, really low resolution, absolute garbage versions of the Zapruder film. The driver is driving and he turns around like this. It's just his wristwatch glinting. Oh, it's a gun in his hand. No, it's his fucking wristwatch. Okay. So I don't know. It's just a bunch of silly nonsense. So where Phil got all this stuff, I don't know. When he brings up John F. Kennedy and the assassination, I'm going to continue to deal with him, to mention in his chat. I don't think that's right. And we'll see. I mean, it would be really interesting to have a discussion of all these different points, but I don't think he has much of a case. That doesn't mean I don't still like Phil for everything, all of his other stuff, but I just don't think it's much. His scenario is wildly complex and implausible and isn't consistent with the facts. So that we have established, at least. Yes, it is a nice sweater. Yeah, Tamu. I know it's a nice. Am I not sexy? Are you not entertaining? Yeah, it's pretty ugly. It's pretty ugly. See, Laura Mills thinks it's ugly. No, Jen. Jen's taking the day off, getting ready for Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Everything's going good for Jody Gordon. You must be in a free state. Aaron Meekin. Hi, Aaron. Nola's here. Hi, Nola. Victoria likes my sweater too. Well, it's a terrible, ugly sweater. Can't wait to get this thing off because it itches like crazy. It itches like crazy. Salvatore from Staten Island, New York City. Hey, man. How you doing? I saw Biden say, if you're jabbed, you don't need the pill. Yeah, they've said a lot of things, all of which have turned out to be lies. I think Trump's position was pretty well explained yesterday, so I might go back and watch yesterday's show. I would like to give you some good news, Tiffany. Don't have much. Eric is here. Rosemary, Merry Christmas to you. Let's see. Everybody's saying happy birthday to Tiff. Happy birthday, sweetie. Wanda, yes, have a Merry Christmas. Where did you go? Fuck his stories, okay? Fuck Juan's stories. We don't need any fucking stories. We need action. We need people arrested and being dragged out and tried. Hi, Polyskirt. How are you? Are you concerned about the World Economic Forum announcing the plan for 10 countries to run a global cyber attack simulation? Are they basically telling us what's coming? Yeah, entirely possible. I'm always concerned about anything the World Economic Forum has to say because they are a bunch of deep state globalist criminals that hang out with Bono. Jennifer says making a cookie recipe started them last night. Yeah, make sure you have enough butter in there. I actually ended up putting up 1.5 cubes of butter, so way more. 2 cubes and a half of butter, way more than it says in the recipe. Yeah, pretty horrible for Jackie. Yeah, again, he didn't fire a shot, Laura. He just turned around and looked. He didn't fire a shot. That's just more stupidity. There's so much stupidity around. There's almost as much stupidity around the Kennedy assassination as there is around 9/11. Good news. Glenn Claddock says, I was told I would be approved for SSDI, and I was approved yesterday. Thank God, Glenn, because nobody else is. You're lucky. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the Secret Service man on the passenger side. There was no gun flash. Yeah, no. Nope. Rifle was a 6.5. Oh, yeah, 6.5 millimeter. Yeah, okay, that's correct. No, the Storm Drain is less obvious than it was because they've built up tarmac on there over the years. They've resurfaced the road. So, yeah, that's bullshit too, Brian. Nobody lifted up a manhole cover and shot him. It was simply the man, J.D. Tippit, in his Dallas policeman's uniform with no hat that Gordon Arnold's testified about years before anybody had enhanced the Mary Mormon photograph, which shows him up there, shot him in the head. No, Ruby died 6 years later from cancer. So if he was even really in prison. Well, John, you are a smart man about that stuff. That he looks like a Bush. Who looks like a Bush? Yeah, it wasn't Kennedy in the car. No, it was Kennedy in the car. No, as you go through your life, your nose and your ears continue to grow. They do. I'm not talking about after death. I'm talking about later in life. Look at any picture of a young man versus an old man. Their noses and their ears are much bigger. Look at Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy, when they did the first Star Trek movie in 1979, 10 years after they last filmed the last episode of Star Trek, they pulled out his old ears to put on his Vulcan ears. They didn't fit because his ears were bigger, so they had to make new castings. It happens. It's life. Can you please explain what muscles the bullet? Well, okay, first of all, the bullet appears to have hit President Kennedy in the back, exited his throat, and remember, he was inboard or outboard and above Governor Connolly, and then it began to, as it exited, it then began to tumble, and it hit Governor Connolly in the rib sideways, tore through that, which is how it got flattened, continued to tumble, and then his left wrist was over his left leg, and then passed through his wrist and lodged in his leg, where it apparently fell out on a stretcher. I don't know. I have to ask Jen about that. Is that story true, or is that bullet not the bullet that passed through them? I heard the Oswald who went to Russia before the shooting wasn't, and that was like almost a year before the shooting, tried to get into Russia. Don't know if it was the same Oswald who came back. Did Jackie say it's not my husband when identifying the body? Read that somewhere. I've read it too. I don't know that that's correct. So
Oh, Jesse Ventura did an episode on JFK. Oh, I'll bet that was entertainingly stupid.
Oh, God. Yeah, thank you. Just made it. Well, Dana, I wish I had more good news for you. There's just nothing happening. Interesting stuff here. Dr. Mark Pinto says Dr. Leo Barnsky was working on transferring the consciousness from one orangutan to another, then later prisoners in the late 1950s. Wrote a book, Unitary Field Theory. It's possible. It's also possible that when you clone somebody, that the clone wakes up with all the memories of the other person. It's possible. We don't know. We don't know if memories are embedded in our DNA. Do we well, we don't know, maybe somebody knows, but we don't know in the public. Do all of our memories get stored in our DNA and every cell in our body? Good question. Yeah, I did pay money for this sweater. I did. It's ugly.
Well, Jim Fetzer and Jesse Ventura, they're not that different.
Sorry, I can't really do Jesse Ventura.
Well, there's these guys, and they say they put bombs in the Twin Towers 50 years ago when they built them.
Yeah, right. Okay, Jesse, whatever. What a stupid show that was. Mike, do you think SCOTUS will rule on the jab mandate? Do you think red state governors, attorney generals will threaten secession? I would wish they would start seceding, but I don't think they're going to threaten it. No. Let's decertify from all the fraud first. Jesus, secession, it's a little extreme, isn't it? Why don't we just prove the fucker's not the president? How about that? How do I think SCOTUS will rule? I don't trust the Supreme Court. I think they're all corrupt, including Kavanaugh and Barrett and Gorsuch. I think they will rule in favor of the mandates. Jen says no, that the New York mandate will be ruled out. So we'll see. Again, Ernie Stark for the Ivan pills. There are weight charts on the internet. Go look it up. Ivermectin human dosage weight chart or something like that. Google it. It will tell you how much to take for your body weight. Son just got COVID. Get him on some Ivan. Looks like a sweater my wife makes me when she's mad at me. Baranski accidentally came across frequency that caused demolecularization in the process of consciousness transfer. Government took his equipment and he mysteriously died of a heart attack. Debbie, is it Biden using a medbed to turn back his timeline to a healthier state? I don't think so. I think it's just different people playing Biden. Brian Thomas, I can't click on that. Were any evil Bush family members there when LBJ? No, the Bushes weren't very important at that time. They were low-level players. And George Herbert Walker Bush was in Tyler, Texas, 4 hours away from Dallas. I think it's 4 hours away. He drove there later that night. Hi, Mike. It's me again. Tim on Super Soldier Talk. There's an agent named Jimmy speaks about JFK saying there were 17 shooters, that he was there as a child delivering ammo to one of them. Bullshit. We're not. Yeah. Again, there's this video. Everything is from JFK to 9/11. Everything is a rich man's trick. And I can recommend you watch about the first 35 or 40 minutes of it because all the stuff about the Federal Reserve is correct. After that, he starts talking about the JFK assassination. And he's the one who came up with this 16 shooters and 8 bullets or 8 shooters and 16 bullets. It's all bullshit. Okay? There is eyewitness identification of 2 shooters. One in the 6th floor window of the Texas School Book Depository named Lee Harvey Oswald. And we can verify that he was there. and one named J.D. Tippit, Dallas police officer, on the grassy knoll. I mean, it's in the documents that Trump just released that have been classified. Why do you think that document was classified for 55 years? Because it tells you who the real killer is. So all this bullshit about all these other mafioso guys and Woody Harrelson's dad on the grassy knoll. What a load of crapola. Just crap. It's just wrong. It's bullshit. And you know, when you make a bad video like everything is a rich man's trick, it becomes part of the discussion. It's as stupid as that, you know, no, there were not 16 shooters or 8 shooters or more than 2. There were no more than 3 or 4 shots fired. And no, Stanley Kubrick did not fake the moon landings. So, no. Please spare me. Oh, I'm awesome on the big screen. Well, thank you, Karen. That's really sweet. I do. I look very preppy today. You know, I tell you what, I maybe for a live stream, maybe over the weekend, if I'm bored, I'll do a JFK live stream this weekend. Tell you the whole theory, my whole theory, top to bottom. All I can tell you is my theory is far more consistent with the actual facts, or what we believe to be the facts of the assassination, than Phil's is. Phil's is just nonsense. That doesn't mean Phil's not smart. It doesn't mean Phil's not right about other things. It just means that somebody's led him off on a garden and on another path. And again, I don't want to show it because it's almost Christmas time and it's super gruesome, but let's watch the Zapruder film sometime. And I mean, literally parts of the president's brains fly off onto the trunk of the car. Okay. Two doctors that treated him, when they looked at the head wound, half the president's brain fell out. Okay, he's dead. I think a far more interesting question is, who is that man? Could that man actually be a clone of JFK? And what does that mean? What technology is involved there? Yeah, I've hung out with Emery Smith. He's a sweet guy, smart guy, likes to drink. I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. I think he's telling the truth. I don't know if his story is true or not. Well, yeah, they could have had a lot of shooters, but there's no evidence of any of them. There's nobody who says, oh, I saw a shooter in the window of that building over there, not the school book depository. So all these supposed other shooters, nobody saw them. People saw Oswald and saw Tippit. And there's photographs of Tippit. And, you know, not photographs of Oswald, but plenty of evidence that he was there. You know, oh, he came to work that day with a package of curtain rods, long curtain rod package, which was his disassembled rifle, Mannlicher Carcano 6.5 millimeter rifle. Do you think Biden will crap his pants before getting removed? I hope so. Yeah, I don't know. Rosemary, I don't know. No, the Zapruder film did not have sound. It was 8 millimeter. 8 millimeter film did not have sound in those days. However, there was a policeman who was guarding the motorcade who had his radio channel was left open, and it was recorded on a dictaphone recording machine back at police headquarters. And that was analyzed in 1978 by the House Select Committee on Assassinations. And they determined that there were 4 shots fired. One which missed, 2 which struck the president in the back, 3 from Oswald which missed, overlapping with a 4th shot, which was the grassy knoll shot. So we can only verify 4 shots. I'm told that there is an inner Earth, there are caverns down there, and that there are 2 civilizations, advanced civilizations living under there. Alien in terms of not human. A lot of them are natural. A lot of them are natural caverns and tunnels. No, it doesn't negate the magic bullet theory. And the magic bullet theory is not ridiculous. As I showed you in the presentation, the bullet went through the president, tumbled into Connolly, and ended up in his thigh. Straight ballistic trajectory. Absolutely consistent. This idea, this nonsense that the JFK movie came up with, that the bullet changed direction, is bullshit. Didn't have to. I used to say that you can't trust a man if he doesn't drink, and now I don't drink anymore. Well, I don't trust you then, Glenn. Mike, have you heard that Dan guy from On the Fringe? If so, what do you think of him? I have not heard of him. I have not heard of him. I don't know who that is. So, all right, everybody, have a Merry Christmas. I want everybody to enjoy themselves as best they can. Try to stay close with your friends and family. It's hard given how difficult times are right now, how much everything sucks. But I just want you to hang in there. My deep thought for you is to have a Merry Christmas. Think about Jesus. And let's hope that somebody with the power to do so starts doing something soon. Because if not, our country is about to be destroyed. It's in the process of being destroyed right now. And nobody seems to be doing anything about it. And that's not a very Merry Christmas message. But let's face reality. That's what's going on. And it needs to be stopped now while we still can. So that's my Christmas wish for the world. My Christmas wish for the world is that the deep state evil pedophiles like Joe Biden are exposed and dealt with by Christmas time. That would be great. That would be great. Other than that, I mean, everybody have a great one. We'll be back on Monday, the 27th. Me and Jen will be back to talk about anything that may happen over the weekend. Enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy your families. Hang in there. I love you. And I will see you then without an ugly Christmas sweater.